Hello, hello. I am Cassie Brown, and I am thrilled to welcome you to the Amplify My Impact podcast. After years of consulting and managing programs for some of the top entrepreneurs, CEOs, and marketers in the industry, I am on a mission to expand our contribution, to grow, scale, and create more so we can do and give more. This podcast celebrates entrepreneurs who are boldly stepping up to own their calling, expand their influence, and stretch outside their comfort zone, who've decided to stop playing it small, pick up the mantle of contribution, and serve at a higher level, to lead by example and light the way for others. If that's you, then get ready to amplify. There's a fire that burns inside your soul, and we're going to ignite it into a roaring blaze of unstoppable momentum. Hey guys, Cassie Brown here. Welcome back to Amplify My Impact. And I am really excited. I'm always excited by now. You guys know the drill. I have an incredible woman and guest, Kris Ward, today. She is founder, author, and podcast host of Win the Hour, Win the Day. She is a team building and productivity expert. She knows her stuff, and she's going to be sharing a ton of behind the scenes, how she got to where she's at in her business. And spoiler alert, I'm sure it's going to include some team building tips and productivity. And Lord knows, like, I'm a mom of four, and so I'm always like, bring it on, sister. What do you have? So I'm really excited for her to be here, for her to share her story, and also what drives her to create these products and services, to be an impact and an influencer, and just also continue to contribute and pay it forward for other entrepreneurs. Because I know once you get into the game, we all have a heart for entrepreneurs, and how can we make it easier for them? How can we create things? And systems are like right up there. They're not sexy, that no one says, I want systems, but they're necessary to be able to scale and make the impact that we want. So Kris, welcome. I am so excited that you're here. Let's dive right into it.
Well, I am super excited to be here. Let's go.
Awesome. So tell us just a little bit about, exactly fill in the gaps of anything I may have missed with that introduction. Like, what is it that you do, the heart and soul of your business, and who you serve?
Well, that was quite an introduction. So no gaps there. But I will expand, but there's no gaps to fill in. So I will invite you to any speaking event where they want somebody to we need someone to say nice things about you. I got it. It's Cassie. Okay. So here's the deal. I'm a marketing strategist, and I've had been doing that for over 12 years. And I was in business, and I was, like anybody else, I've got those horror stories in the beginning, and I was able to turn it around, all this other stuff. And luckily I did, because I was pulled away from my business because my husband was diagnosed with colon cancer. And, what happened was, when I returned to my business after his death, my clients had no idea of my absence. They had no idea what was going on in my personal life. I'm just going to be honest. It's not good for business. I didn't want to talk about it. And, I had a lot on my plate. And so I returned to my business. Now, let's take all the emotion out of this. Had I returned and not had a business, it was not the point in my life to try to be charming and get a job and do resumes. That would have just been like the last thing I could have managed, right? So my clients, my existing marketing clients, are asking me very gently, like, hey, how did you pull this off? How did we not know? How did this all happen, right? So, under the capacity of team building and productivity, I started working with them because, like anybody else, they were always putting out fires. They were zoning out when they were with their family. They were just, you're like a drug addict in the closet trying to answer one more email before your family catches that you're missing, right? We've all been there. So,
oh my gosh, yes. My 6-year-old threatens me all the time. She's like, are you just not going to work? Can you not work, mommy?
Yes. I heard in a park one day, somebody walking by, and the little kid saying, no emails, right, mommy? No emails, right? And you're like, oh, the little bit of guilt there, right? So these were the people that were coming to me. And of course, I had a renewed commitment to the fragility of life. And I just felt that your business should support your life and not consume it. And that life has interruptions. And I would have been in a very different spot had I not had this team built out. So I started working with these clients, and we started seeing like big results, that they were most of the clients I work with in my coaching program, because we have this 90-day coaching program, they're getting back about 25 hours a week within the first month. Okay. And the world is a magical place right now as far as outsourcing. And there's just so many things that you can do that people are not aware of. So what happened is we started getting all these successes, and they started, looking at their, oh my gosh, saying, look, 90 days ago I started this and now I'm working half the time and getting bigger results. So I wanted to help more people. I really want to create a movement because I don't believe grinding it out is the answer. And so I wrote the book, Win the Hour, Win the Day. And from that evolved our coaching. And now we're just on the edge of launching our first product called the Outsourcing Playbook for Busy Entrepreneurs. So that's kind of how it evolved, and the passion that I have for it, because I think business should be fun.
Yeah. And first of all, I know we've spoken about this, my condolences for the loss of your husband. And I know what it means to be that rallying point where it's like, we had a devastating diagnosis that turned our life upside down. And it was one of those things where that's a stark comparison to where you were able to dig in. And it's so admirable because, like you said, on the emotional side, like it could have all fallen apart. It could have all fallen apart and had so much more stress compounded on the situation without that team in place. Whereas with my husband's diagnosis, I didn't have teams at the time. I was a wedding photographer, solopreneur, a team of one.
Yeah.
So my business stopped. Absolutely 100% stopped. And it could have been a completely different story had I had a team in place or associate shooters or something like that. I think that is it's a noble message. And you are just so incredibly brave with the way that you've come out on the other side, with just creating the system so others don't have to be faced with, like, life is going to happen. Horrible circumstances of life is going to happen. I mean, just a few months ago with businesses going through COVID and everything like that, like, I think the nimbleness and the systems that we have in place are like layers of security for our business. So I'm really, really excited with not only what you've created and the heart that you have to share and sort of insulate others to help them be able to deal with catastrophes when they strike. But I didn't want to go any further without just completely acknowledging that. Like, I just think you're an amazing, incredible superwoman.
Well, thank you. I'm not a superwoman. I was a person that was surrounded by really amazing people. And one of them was John, my husband. And what happened too was, I want to add this to the story where he saw how hard I worked those first couple of years. I went without sleep and I had reportedly lost some of my charm. And, and then he started turning it all around, and I had decided that I would make productivity and team building my superpower. And while we were going through this journey together, he would say to me every once in a while, like, babe, what about the business? And I'd be like, oh, it's fine. And I was pretty sure it was fine. I wasn't 100% sure. But the last thing he would have needed during that stressful time was for him to be worried that in his eyes, he was dragging me down. Like he saw how much I was committed to the cause, and he wouldn't have needed that guilt. And that would have been horrendous for him. And on top of that, here's how we entered that journey. We decided if the doctors are wrong, then we spent the last couple of years holding hands crying. And if the doctors were right, we spent the last 2 years holding hands and crying. So we also had big adventures. I took him to England to see some relatives he hadn't seen in a while. We did all these surprises for him and really lived the best life that took a lot of organizing on top of everything else. So I think your message is really important, but more than coming back to a business, that would have just been during that journey stress that, I would have saw that aged him dramatically. So it is an important, things happen and you need to be able to focus on it. And it could be something as simple as slipping on ice and breaking your arm. Right. Because you made a really good point. Talking about a solopreneur, I was interviewing someone on my podcast, and he was talking about how his father was renowned in the area for his craftsmanship and all the woodwork that he could do. And he was in business like 50 years, and you would get something off him, a bookend or a table. It was thousands of dollars. Like, people were on huge waiting lists. And the day he stopped his business, he closed the door and sold his tools. That was it. he could have been the one that gave the final stamp on the wood or qualified. I had kids doing by kids, in his mind, 65 years old, a kid would have been 40. So he could have been having things where the quality of the production would have maintained the same. And he just would have had his hand in a number of levels of that production instead of start to finish. And to sell his tools after being so sought after all those years, that's the thing. You're not an entrepreneur. You don't have a business if you can't, if it can't run without you to a certain point.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for slowing down to take it to that next level. Like, because not only is it insulating our business, but it's insulating, our family, the safety and the security of our family, and the legacy that we have to leave.
Yeah. 100%.
Awesome. Okay, so are you ready to tell us a little bit more about the book and what that was like?
Sure, absolutely. What do you want to know?
Well, I'm just fascinated. I love systems and structures and frameworks, and I love the path that you had. You had the realization, I need teams and systems to support not just me, but my business and the security of my family. So that was your aha. You became your first case study, essentially. Yeah. People started asking about it. So you had a model, you repeated the model. Yeah. And is that what was the framework for the book? Is putting that together?
Yeah, that was a framework for the book, but also let's not gloss over some of my human flaws. So in the beginning, I was like everybody else. I was what I would call hysterical Kris. I was always in a rush. I call myself a recovering rushaholic. Everything was like, John used to say to me, you can't always steal from sleep. So it was always stay later, get up earlier, right? And there are people, and there's a lot of them that we could gather, and they would report that I wasn't as charming as I would like to think I was during those years because I was exhausted at all times. Like, I felt sick. Like I felt nauseous. There was different levels of nausea, but I wasn't like, oh, I'm a little tired. It was not like that. I was shoving food down my throat with my left hand as I answered emails with my right. And of course, when you do that, you never shove salad down your throat, right? So all of a sudden my self-care, my first time in my life, I'm not exercising because I'm not sleeping enough to even consider that foolishness. And so there came a point where I thought, wow, I'm in business 2 years. I can't sustain this 10. And also I did have an amazing teammate at home, and John was picking up more and more of the slack. And, we were always 50-50, 60-40, but now it was like 80-90-10 because he did feel I worked so hard. So he didn't want me to come in at the end of the day and start doing things. So he said I turned him into a 1950s housewife in 2 years. So that's where I said, okay, you know what? I can't disrespect how much support I'm getting. I got to figure this out. And so for me, here's what my big message is. People think starting a team is about money. And when you get to a certain level and, this time next year or a certain plateau, I can't afford it. It's too much work. And I'm here to tell you, if you think you can't afford a team, that means you need a team. So the first outsourcer I hired was, here's the deal. This is like 8-9 years ago. And when I started this, it was under the guise of like, you're hiring somebody offline, and it sounded like they're going to drive their chicken to work, So I was going into meetings and I would be sitting at a desk and writing things down because I was a marketing strategist. And there's always involved packages and details and all this stuff. Now I would promise, hand to God, when I came out, that when I got back to the office, I would put these notes in the file right away. And that never happened. And every week I would beat myself up, and finally it would be a Friday afternoon. I'm putting all these notes together, which by the way, were meant for like 20 minutes, not for me to come back and look at them 2 weeks later. So then when a client would call, I'd kind of be sketchy and, oh my gosh, I can't read my own notes because they're supposed to be for 20 minutes and, all these details. And had they caught me, never mind the stress, had they caught me, it would have looked like I was trying to swindle them when in fact, I just had a bad plan. So at that point, I found an outsourcer to do a transcription for me. So I would leave the meeting, sit in the car, and just talk quickly and clearly into it and say, here's the packages, here's the details, here's what, everything. And then it was in my notes within hours. And, then they call and I'm like totally clear-headed. I got Friday afternoon back. This transcriptionist, God help her, this is all she wanted to do. So she had like 10 clients that did this. And some weeks I would use her an hour. Some weeks I would use her none. But the weeks I did use her, it cost me like about $12. And I thought, oh my gosh, for $12 for me to get Friday afternoon back, for me not to carry that guilt and beat myself up all week, and for me to get the pricing and the package and the details correct when somebody called, like, come on. So that's where I say to people, you think it's this big machinery, but you're thinking from an employee perspective of when you were an employee. And this is why I'm so passionate about getting the message out. Because to me, team means together, everyone amplifies money. And so what this means for you is you can get any dreams out, any clients, you can build anything your heart or your vision desires, and you can do it in a quarter of the time than you ever thought. So what this means for you is more money and less hours.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And like, I'm going through our own processes as I'm listening to you, and we're both so similar as to the strategist in us. We can work it all out in our minds, and it's just getting it organized on paper so other people can understand our vision. And I love the way that you broke it down and took it into that, because like we have processes and I ask all of the questions. We know what needs, like we know what needs to be communicated to the team. And I'm thinking like, first of all, that was genius to transcribe it into notes, but I'm thinking we make presentations to our clients where we could have templates where it goes that next step. Like here's the plan, here's the transcription, and now here it's applied in our presentation. And like you said, I could probably have that done in just a matter of hours and not have to do it myself anymore.
100%. So we tend to work with two groups of people. And one is like, they just don't get the whole outsourcing thing. They think it's going to cost them time and money, and they're thinking old school. And then we work with people like you, where they like, oh, they got the concept and they're feeling really empowered and they have a small team. And then what happens is we go in and we work with them, and they often go, oh, wow. Like, it's almost like they're using 20% of their capabilities and they're missing big holes. It's like driving along and you've got a powerful engine, but it's in like a 1975 Ford, and I want to get you in a Ferrari, right?
Yeah.
So what happens is like, oh yeah, you understand you need a car and you have an engine and you got all the working parts, but you got the wrong thing in an old model. And so what we do, and this happens all the time with people exactly like yourself, it's like, oh my gosh, because I'm constantly looking at something, how can we get 10 steps down to 6 to 4 to 3? And also how, even when you have a team, too often the work goes to the team, comes back to you, then to somebody else. And you're still the gatekeeper. Whereas like, let's say, for example, when I'm doing my podcast, we have a process which takes me about, I'd say 6 to 7 minutes, say, okay, it's been recorded, here's the thing. And there's 2 or 3 little things I do. And then there's all these steps that put them through different departments. And what I really want is anyone on my show to feel like they were really featured. So we've got a quote card that we make with their picture on it, a quote from the thing. We've got a wave file, we've got selfie, we've got a picture. Like there's about 7 pieces of goods that we give the client or the guest. And they get so excited about that. But I don't see any of it, even when the show goes up in the air, up in iTunes, the air, hello, grandma. When the show goes up in iTunes, not only have I not heard it or not edited it, my team will listen to it after it's on iTunes to make sure, like, it's called being audited. What if we put it up and nothing happened, or halfway through it cut out? So it's even listened to by somebody on my team. So I would say that we have a very elaborate, and I work with a lot of podcasters and people who produce stuff like you know, got your smarty pants on and you always want to create the next thing. And what happens is they've got these great ideas and they've got a basic infrastructure, but they could amplify that 2-3 fold and also reduce their role probably by about 60%.
Yeah, you are literally describing the situation we're in right now. We're reformatting our systems and getting more efficient, you know, going into the content multiplier, like, and it's just one of those things like, oh, you are just hitting it spot on. So what was the process like in creating that book? Because obviously you have such an incredible commitment to achieving this mission. And I really want to see like just a little sneak peek. And of course, like definitely you guys get the book if you're listening, Win the Hour, Win the Day. So a sneak peek, is it a framework? And is that how the coaching program came about? Or did the coaching program come from questions from the book? Like, okay, I got the book, I understand it, how do we implement it?
So I took everything that I had learned over the years from doing my coaching and I used that to tell stories with the book. And what people tell me all the time is that it changes their perception of time and how they see their business. So it's an easy read. And what I did is I divided the book into strugglers and successful people. And then I put a number of things that would be in play, like team building, like using your calendar, like different tools that are all free or next to free, like we're talking pennies, and show you how to navigate through your business. And what I would describe it from is, let's say, a struggler. You talk to a struggler about building their team, and they will often tell you it's too much money, it's too expensive, the economy, kids these days, blah, blah, blah. Where then I put, when I talk to a successful person, and by a successful person, I mean somebody's business who can run without them to a certain period of time. So it's not about money, because you can make a lot of money and still be a struggler and working crazy hours. So it's freedom and lifestyle and choices that a successful person has. And they would tell me, oh, they would give me tips on how to make my team better and how to do this and how to do that. So really what it is a bunch of conceptual things that awaken people, is what I'm told on a daily basis, awakens them to see things differently. Because what breaks my heart is when you run around and you're chasing the wrong problem. Oh, if I just had more time, or after the holidays, I get this, or I get that tool, or if I just need this software and it's going to, it'll work on its own. Everything will be fine once I invest in that. And you can have a microphone. It doesn't make you a better communicator. It makes you louder. So the book is from really giving people fables, because we all had these things in our head. And I did for years too, because to my fault, I was organized. I worked hard, and I got stuff done. I was a go-to person for a lot of people. So when people talk to me about, team building, productivity, I'm like, listen, I get a lot done in a day. There's just too much to get done. So I got in those minds and say, like, if you hear yourself saying this, like, oh, this doesn't apply to me, my business is different, and all these things, you often will see yourself in the struggler profile. So for that, I think it's a very different book than what you're having out there, because until you have your mind open to what is it that you need, you're just beating your head against the wall.
I love that. I love that. So, of course, we're dissecting this, sort of like from a marketer's view, but also from a business view. Like, so the book was leveraged to break down those false beliefs, to make room for the solution to be able to come in.
Yes. Yes.
Awesome.
And because I was passionate about getting this message out, because I had gone through this thing, and I just want, here, a book, then people can read it, and I don't need to be going around and every time you say, hi, Kris, I start railing on you about this, right? So I thought, you don't get it. Like, you need to understand, like, my whole life would have just been gutted and different had this not been in place. So, and like I said, everybody's life doesn't have to have trauma, and I'm not looking, it was a struggle for me at first to tie that part into this story. And people would say, you have to tell your story, Kris, you have to tell your story. And to me, it's like, I didn't want it to define me or John, because it wasn't the only thing he did. But people said, otherwise, it's just another team building productivity book. Like, you have to tell how it saved you. So I'm like, okay, fine. So it doesn't have to be like something dramatic in your life. But like I said, you could slip and fall on ice, or God help you, you might want to take a couple weeks off for vacation. Okay, and then come back and not have had all these problems, or slinking away like I said, a drug addict on the beach trying to say, oh, I know Wi-Fi, I'm over here behind a tree.
Yes, which I know a lot of people listening can identify with that, because I think we've covered this a lot on the show, is a lot of us start out from a bootstrapping entrepreneur, solopreneur, and we grow and we evolve and we refine our systems, our methods, our frameworks, and everything like that to what we hope is more efficient. But sometimes we have to be willing to get out of our own way. So moving on from the book, like, do you want to share like what happens next?
Sure. I mean, I think it's very timely too, because here's the thing. With this whole pandemic going on, what I want people to understand is, look, and it was really difficult for me to start talking about this in the beginning, because, there are lives that have been impacted very negatively, and there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. So I'm not minimizing that. But what I was saying to people right in the beginning is, this is going to shift the way business is done. It kind of reminded me when you learned in school, like how the economy changed when the men went off to war, came back, and women had jobs. Like, there was a very fundamental shift. And so what's going to happen too is all businesses, regardless of what you are, if you're something that trades time for money, like a massage therapist or whatever you do, you're going to have a much stronger virtual component. That they all see that really quickly. And it's going to change the game. So what that means is you're going to have more competition. You need to have your ducks in a row because things are going to change. You need to be able to leverage your ideas, because all that an entrepreneur is really is somebody with a vision and ideas. What happens where you succeed is when you put execution in play. Without a team, you have no execution. And therefore, you have a very expensive job of being self-employed. So things are going to change. And I see that all the time now, like, oh, this, even little things like I've got, a massage therapist about to open, and now she's starting to send me all these things that we could do virtually and she didn't have before. So this is going to be a sped up version of where business was going virtually. So you really want to stay in the game.
That's so true. I think it levels the playing field of no longer do we have to communicate how important it is to have that online presence and digital product offerings, no matter what business you are, brick and mortar service or something like that. There is something that we can create on that evergreen model. And this, like, it used to be an obstacle that we had to overcome. It used to be something that we had to convince someone of, and we don't have that anymore. So I think you are spot on with, now we just need to be able to execute it faster, because we're not having that slow process of having to communicate and convince. Like they're coming asking for it. And are we going to be ready to respond? So do you have some of your favorite tips that you want to share with everyone, or what are the, first few things that we need to do, the most important thing to do or stop doing?
Yeah, there's so much. We could make this like a 9-part Netflix series. What I would say to people is, what I would really love for people to understand is the myths. Okay. So there's this idea that it's going to cost you a lot of money and there's going to be, more management, and you don't have time to keep up doing what you're doing. So what I would say to you is, when done correctly, it gives you instant relief. Now, but what I want people to say is to understand, sometimes they'll hear me say these things and then they come back and they say, well, Kris, I tried it and didn't work. And I'm like, well, you have to understand that it's not a strategy you have any experience in. So why I created the book and now the platform, the Outsourcing Playbook for Busy Entrepreneurs, is because I'm giving you 8 years of experience of my work and all my clients' work and showing you all the shortcuts. And, in our modules, we got things like how to hire the perfect person, training toolkit, dream accelerator, momentum magic, talent tracker. There's all these things. So what I want people to understand is so super easy to do, but it's kind of like, let's say you're making chocolate chip cookies. Oh, that's a basic recipe. Everyone does it. But when you take the cookies out of the oven and then you put the chocolate chips in, it really changes the recipe, right? So it's kind of like my accountant saying to me, Kris, you need a new tax strategy. And then I come back later and say, it didn't work. And she's like, well, what do you know? Right? So I want people to understand the whole problem too with doing it yourself. Not only is it a time crunch and you're bottlenecking yourself, but you can't have this talent in like 10 other areas. And with technology, you can't keep up on all those things. So, for my person who edits my podcast, just a few weeks ago, she came up with this software, and it's called Descript, Descript. Super affordable. I think it's like $50. You can right click. And if your guest says, then they'll say, do you want to take out all the ums in this interview? And you go, yes. So all the ums are out, right? Now, the reason she has this is because that's her zone of genius. That's her focus. That's what she does all the time. So what happens is tools are often connected to talent. But if you're running around trying to just pick up enough to get by in every area, not only are you bottlenecking and slowing down all the things that you could get out to the world, and you're exhausted, not only will you not do it as well, and it's going to cost more money and delay everything, but you're not going to be on the cutting edge of anything. So that's a big thing, is I just want to sort of break down the myths and make people understand that it's not this big heavy thing where what my pet peeve is, like these softwares or things that promise you big ambitions. If you just work on it for like, 3 to 6 months, you'll see it. And then nothing happens. When we work with my clients, like I said, in the first month, they get like 25 hours back a week. It happens so fast. So this outsourcing thing is not another mountain for you to climb. It's somebody giving you a jimmy up the mountain. Like, hey, I'll pull you up quicker. That's my passion. Is it just looks like another heavy thing to do.
I love it. I love it. So how can we get out of our own ways? Is it mindset? Is it running the numbers? Like what have you found amongst entrepreneurs and business owners that they're resisting the most of fully stepping into that CEO role?
I think what happens is a couple of things. You always think your business is different and you're different. And I did too. Like I said, a while ago, I said, oh my gosh, don't talk to me about, time management, productivity. I get a lot done in a day. There's just too much. You don't understand. My business is different, right? So I think there is that. And what I want people to truly understand is it is easy and it is affordable. And that, you always think your business is super different. So think of it like, let's say you are a chef and you want to open a little bistro thing in your area. It's like, okay, it's going to seat 20 people. Now we understand when we say, okay, so he would be in the back and maybe we just have a hostess out front and somebody brings the groceries in, and we're charging $40 a plate. We know that it wouldn't make sense for the person doing the cooking, the chef in the back, to buy the groceries, to seat the people, to, be the server, to do the dishes. That makes no sense, because they would get like 5, 10, maybe 15 meals out a night. Whereas if they're focused in the back and producing these pieces of art on a plate, they're going to serve like 60, 80 meals. We can do that. We can make sense. We know that with a contractor. He's not going to learn when he's building your house how to do plumbing and electricity and do the tiles. My gosh, he wants to get that house up and out as fast as he can to get to the next house to make more money and sell them. Now, when you think about houses, you go, oh my gosh, that's so expensive. I'm not making the money, all that stuff. But these are just examples so you can visually see how it holds you up. You think your business is different, but the rules of engagement for any business are the same. And the success story of any business in the history of entrepreneurship starts with a team. That's it. 2 guys in a garage, whatever. You don't succeed like, oh, once I get up to the mountain, then I get the team. You'll just never get to where you want to be. So it's understanding that your business is not different.
Oh, that's awesome. And essentially, like what I'm getting here is by the time you realize you need a team, it's a little too late. Like they could have helped.
Team day one.
Okay, awesome.
I mean, I started building my team 2 years in, and I'm telling you, the world would have been a better place had I done that 2 years earlier.
Awesome. So, get out of our own way, realize that we need it faster than we believe that we do. Give yourself permission that your business is worth it. So when you talk about startup costs, is there something that would be like people, if that's one of the biggest things, like, is there a ballpark? Is there something like what you said, or start here, like if someone's looking to invest $500, like, is that doable?
Well, $500 is a lot. So what I would say to you is, with the outsourcing playbook for busy entrepreneurs, it's coming out in a couple weeks, and I'm not kidding you, we're giving away the farm. Like I told my team, we should feel like we're bleeding, that we're giving away so much. So I would check that out for sure. I'm serious. But with my example with the transcriptionist, what happened was I spent $12. I got all of Friday afternoon back so I could work on other things. I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Okay, what's the next thing that I could spend $20 on? That is the beauty and power of outsourcing, is we could be working with, let's say, one of our coaching clients and say, okay, you've never had a virtual assistant before. So let's start off with finding somebody that's going to go from part-time to full-time. So they might start out 3 hours a week, and they might work with us, for the next 12 weeks. And then you go, oh, I got way more work for them. So now, and then you're bringing in more revenue because you're out doing the stuff that makes the company money. And now you're saying, well, let's bring her up to 7 hours a week. That's the beauty of outsourcing, is it can grow as your needs and income allow, and it pays for itself immediately, or you don't use it. That's it. It covers itself. So there's no big upfront investment. My upfront investment when I started this journey was $12. And I felt it was worth every single dollar, all 12 of them.
Yeah. Oh, awesome, awesome, awesome. All right. So I hope that we've given each of the listeners just something to think about, something to slow down and think about, like where is that first $12 investment in their business, or that $20 investment? Like what could 3 hours off of their plate look like or do? So I think you've given them a lot, to uncover and to consider. And I know we're coming up to the top of the hour, I want to just sort of open it up with you, like share where you're at now in your life and your family and your business and your team, and what you're looking forward to in the future.
Well, you know what? The world's a bright place. I'm super excited. And I just want to thank you for all your great questions, because really what it means for your audience and what this means for you is that you can have all the help you need to effortlessly run your business, right? And that's how I was able to get my book out. And that's how I was able to get the podcast out. When we decided to do that, I said, because it came up in conversation, I said, okay, so here's an idea. People keep telling me I should do a podcast, blah, blah, blah. So then it was like in October, and I said, let's do it in the spring. And then my team said to me, well, you've got a speaking gig in 4 weeks. Why don't we launch it then? And I'm like, wait, what? And they said, I'm like, what's 4 weeks from now? And they're like, well, we've got the strategies from the book. We use them. We'll just use them more. And I'm like, okay, so you can't argue with them on that, right? So you're like, I can't argue that my book isn't good enough. And so we were able to do that. And now we're doing the outsourcing playbook for busy entrepreneurs. So what I would tell you is, I know the curse and the blessing of being an entrepreneur is you have more ideas than you can implement. But you want to be able to keep up with some of them, or they keep moving further away and you get so discouraged and disengaged. And as one of my clients said to me, she said, Kris, you're like a dream catcher. She said, you allow me to catch up with my dreams. So that's what I want people to understand is I'm not special. It's, I work less now than I certainly did 8 years ago. That's for sure. I cut out early to go on bike rides. I do a whole bunch of things. But we're able to just move at a healthy rate because we have these strategies in place, and they're super easy and doable. And again, I know if you think your business is different, we were working with one client of ours, and she was an interior designer. And she's like, you don't understand. I have to do it. Like, this is it. I'm the interior designer, hands-on. There's no other way. But what happened was, like in any industry, there was a lot of pre and post work. So all of a sudden we were able to get her hour-and-a-half appointments down to like 45 minutes. So she could start doing more of them in less time, which freed her up. And she started doing speaking gigs and local TV and podcasts. And it really blew up her business because we were strategic about where her time went. So if you think your business is different, please reach out. Tell me how. I'd love to hear it, because, there's just so much more out for you, so much more for you out there that you can sort of really get your hands on.
That's awesome. So where can everyone find you?
They can check me out on Facebook or LinkedIn at krisward.com, Kris Ward. And they could also, the waiting list is coming soon from KRIS.com. So you can check that out, because we're giving away huge bonuses to those that are on a waiting list. And for your listeners, we have a free gift from Kris, KRIS.com.
Hey! Wow.
And there's a bunch of things in there that we actually still charge for. So it's not just like one download. There's some video training. There's some, manuals. There's some really cool stuff in there. It's like a little treasure box. So that's a free gift from Kris.com. And just reach out to me on the socials and tell me that you heard me on this amazing podcast, and we'll be best of friends.
I love it. I love it. Okay. So we've got a couple minutes, and I'm curious.
Sure.
So what do you do for fun now with all of your free time? Like, what brings you joy?
My favorite thing is to go for bike rides I live near a really beautiful trail, and I sort of rediscovered bike riding about 2.5 years ago. So especially when the weather is warm, I will always work out in the morning. And if the weather is nice, I will bike ride, or I'll do weights or something. And then I cut out early and I go for a nice long bike ride at night.
Oh, that sounds like heaven.
Yeah.
And are you still traveling? Do you still love to? Well, obviously not right now with everything shut down, but.
You know what? I never really loved traveling. I'm not a good traveler. I always think the night before, when you have to pack everything up, I think, you know what? My stuff is all here. Why don't I just stay? But I will travel when I need to travel for work and opportunities and stuff. For sure, I'll do that. But I'm not someone that said, like, I had a bunch of things rescheduled and I was like, awesome. Like, let's just, I like a routine. I'm wimpy that way.
Oh, I love it. Well, thank you so much. I think you are my spirit animal, my soul sister in so many ways. When it just comes to having that mindset of like, I don't care how much of it I have to do, I'm going to get it done. And I'm pretty darn efficient about, like when you're a doer and you're a finisher, but it doesn't necessarily mean you should be doing and finishing everything. So I think if nothing else, like if you just skip to the end of this podcast, like that's the whole point is build your team to leverage your impact in your business and let them support you and your goals to contribute greater in every area of your life, your family, your business, your self-care, and in every single way possible.
So you could amplify your impact.
Yes. Bring it home, Kris.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you guys for listening. Kris, thank you for spending time with us. And we'll be sure to make sure all of those links are in the show notes and all of that good stuff. I do have an incredible podcast team. I will say Parker Woodward and his team do a great job, and I'm grateful for them. And yes, I would have been crazy to not give that portion of the business up, and I'm thankful every day. So thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing all of your goodness, and I wish you nothing but the best in all of the launches that you have coming up.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for spending time with me today. I hope you've received value, encouragement, and exactly what you need to help keep you in momentum to grow and impact the world around you. Big or small, we all make a difference. Thanks also for subscribing, downloading, and leaving a review. This helps us reach others who need this message in their life. If you know anyone who would benefit from this podcast, please share so you and I can help more people boldly step into purpose. It is my heart's mission to help and encourage others. My internal belief that a rising tide lifts all ships. So much of what we talk about on the podcast is leading with value and building relationships through service. So we've created a collection of resources for you to continue growing, whether you are just getting started or ready to scale your business. Visit amplifymyimpact.com for show notes, downloads, programs, and more information about how to directly work with our team to amplify your impact and change the world.